All right, welcome everybody. I'm excited to have you guys here today. Today, we're going to be doing another fun interview with somebody that has a specialty in real estate, but it's not what you think, not just selling real estate houses, but investing and even in subdividing land. Now, I'm going to share with you guys that although I am a real estate agent in Las Vegas, this topic is completely foreign to me. So I'll be learning along with you guys and asking questions as well. And this is going to be a great motivator for those of you guys that are in real estate and have not started investing yet. And also for those of you that are not in real estate that might be interested in starting a side hustle, because I know a lot of you guys are looking to do what I've done and increase your multiple income streams so that you have some diversity in your life, which I highly recommend to everybody. So today I have the fabulous JT Sinclair from Idaho, and I'm going to let John come on here and tell us a little bit about where he works and so that you guys know where you can send your real estate referrals. So we'll start that. Are we going by John or JT?
JT is good.
Okay, I've always did JT, but I see John on your picture, so I wanted to make sure that if anybody saw that, they realize I'm talking to you. All right. Okay, JT. So tell everybody where you do real estate. Let's start off with that.
Yeah. So I'm in North Idaho. So most people know it as Coeur d'Alene area, but we have about a 2-hour radius all the way up to the Canadian border and Washington to Montana. So pretty big area. The center of it's in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho.
So tell me, you said Washington to Montana. You mean you serve Washington?
No. I'm not dual or triple licensed. I go to the border. So that's my east and west lines.
Wow. So we were talking before the interview, you are all over the place and you have to drive quite a bit to do your real estate transactions. And something I can't relate to, and I'm sure other people who are in big cities, for me, everything is right here. I mean, I live in a little town called Boulder City now, just outside of Las Vegas. And for me, it's 20 minutes into Henderson, 30 minutes into Vegas, and only an hour to cover the entire valley. Everything that's in my MLS I could serve. So I can't even imagine what that must be like in this market driving by. Are you working with buyers?
I don't. Yesterday, what you're talking about, all my driving was I was looking at investments in multiple markets. So I will drive for my investments, and the buyer's agents on the team will definitely drive to those more remote areas because it's where we can find somewhat more affordable properties. So, sell a $300,000 FHA house, you would have to drive into, maybe an hour to find that.
Wow. Okay. All right. So you have not worked with clients for how long? How long have you been out of or did you ever?
Oh yeah, definitely worked with clients, and I still do. I have a strong sphere business that I work alongside a business partner. So I will, I'm there on the sidelines helping, but one-on-one interaction. I have a few investors that I work with still because I enjoy that. So I'm still producing.
Okay, got it. All right. So the reason why I invited you on today, besides your day-to-day real estate business and your real estate team, we've known each other for, I don't know, 10 or 12 years or something now in the real, gosh, that's even crazy to say out loud.
No, right? It seems like 2 years.
Have changed and grown. And I remember meeting you, and all I could remember is that you had 1 million kids. And we started teasing each other, and you called me Vegas and I called you Spud for Idaho. How many kids are in your family now?
We have 8 kids, about to have 2 in-laws and a grandbaby.
That's amazing. Didn't I just see your one daughter got married already?
My son got married, and my daughter gets married in June.
Congratulations. I know this time of life, we're both in it, and having kids get married and go off to college. And I don't have any grandbabies yet. So we'll see when that phase comes. But I just remembered that about you, and you really stood out, and we're friendly, we networked. But anyway, besides being a good guy, I saw you posting about subdividing land. So I reached out to you and said, hey, I would love to interview you about subdividing land. And then we got to chatting about your investment business. So start off by telling us how many doors you actually have right now as an investor.
We have 70 rentals.
70. That I don't know why that just blows my mind. Okay, so what year did you buy your first one?
Oh gosh, 98, probably right out of high school.
Wow. And what led you to do that?
That's a great question, Lori. There was an infomercial guy named Carlton Sheets who had a late night infomercial, no money down, videos of people on the beach and white suits and, living the life. And I didn't really know anything about real estate at all, but I bought the course at like 18 and uh, dove into it and just really, really, I got excited about it. I kind of found my passion. And it just made so much sense that you could buy an asset, the bank could finance it, and the tenant would pay it off. And so at the end of it, you're gonna have a paid off asset, but also I found out about this thing called appreciation and the tax savings and leverage. And I went down a path that's changed my life.
Okay, I have so many questions I want to pick apart there, but so you bought your first one in 98, and did you pay cash? Did you get financing? How did that
We
work?
got financing. It was probably a low down 5% type loan. Things were different there. I was in rural Tennessee, so we could use local banks and put 10% down. And the purchase price then was like 35,000. So it was not a lot of money, but I remember thinking, holy cow, that's a lot of money, 3,500 whenever I was 19 years old.
Okay, so the way I understand it today is that if I wanted to go out and buy an investment property and I wanted to get it financed, I would need to have 20% down to buy that property. Is that what it kind of looks like today? Do you know, or are you just now you're cash rolling everything?
No, I don't cash flow. I still leverage like crazy. I think the power of leverage is just amazing. So I think it's wise to leverage safely. Yeah, to just go in a bank, you would probably end up paying 20% down, maybe 25% down, depending on the product. There's some options. You could buy a duplex and opt to live in one side and get it for as low as 3.5% down. Or if you're a veteran, you could probably get it for no money down through a VA loan if you're a veteran. And I'm not sure on that, so I probably shouldn't say that on something that's going to be recorded, but that would be something I would check into. There are options to get it for lower money down. And then I found out about a thing called private money, where you work with private investors who just have extra money in the bank and they need a place to invest it. And so I started working with private investors, which were really just friends that had money. And we would give them a first mortgage on our properties, and in return, they would get a nice interest rate. So that changed the game for me whenever I figured out the power of using someone else's money instead of always coming up with my own 20% down.
Yeah, and I just recently have begun studying and watching a lot of even the giants out here that own the timeshares and whatnot keep talking about you don't use your own money, leverage. And I had never even thought about that early on. So tell me really quick, if out of that many properties, what does the profit look like? Like what is kind of like a monthly income on 70 doors?
I wish I could give you a real answer. I don't know. Everything covers itself. We always have a surplus of extra, but we tend to roll that money right back into more rentals, or we're always doing a remodel on our next one. I can tell you, I haven't had to feed my holding LLCs in a few years. There was a time where we would have to actually put money into them as we had to put a new roof or do big projects. But for the most part, I can handle all the repairs, pay a manager, pay the debt service, and then we just keep a healthy sum in there for future repairs. And then maybe once a year, we'll pull out a sum of money. So it's not as attractive as one might think. And that's probably because I have leverage on lots of the properties. So if they were free and clear, it would be a totally different story. We've been in a growth mode for a decade or more, where I'm still acquiring. At some point, we'll stop that and make my wife very happy when we just focus on, let's just pay down some debts instead of continuing to buy more assets.
Okay, that's an aha for me. So this isn't something you're living off of right now. You're reinvesting, as we often do in our businesses anyway. What is the ultimate goal then? Do you have a time frame of when you think that would start happening? Is this your retirement goal is to live off these properties?
I'm enjoying doing what I've always done, having the real estate team that funds my lifestyle. So my real estate team funds most everything. We do things like the developments that are bonus money that go into savings or could pay down debt. I see this as a legacy. I see this as we're building something huge, and I'm kind of not done building. I'm 44, so fairly young here. I like being able to help my kids. I just helped two of them get into a house where we were able to finance them, so that was great. We were able to give a lot of money away last year, and that was awesome. So I kind of like that. I kind of, they always say that money's good for the good it can do, and I'm finding that to be true. It's a lot of fun to be able to give away the money.
Yeah,
and to do good things with it.
It's interesting. My older brother and I were just having this conversation yesterday, and I was telling him that one of my favorite things about this phase in life is that not only can I help my family members. So for example, this made me think of you, something you just said a few minutes ago when you were talking about buying a house in other ways that you wouldn't normally think of. My brother and I bought my mother a house to live in out here in Boulder City. And we were able to do a 5% down because it was an elderly parent program that I had never heard of. But the property's in my name, and it's my brother and my investment that she's going to live out her life in now. So she gets to be across the street from her grandkids. She gets to be 3 minutes from me and right next to my brother, but yet we have the investment. And I would have never thought of that if we just drove by the house and happened to see it and called the lender and say, what would it take because I was also buying my own house at the same time. I'm like, am I gonna be able to qualify for both these houses? Thank God I was able to do that on my own. Amazing universe, God, everybody, just amazing situation. But now it's my first investment property technically. And I was like, I bet you people don't even know this program exists. And then I wonder how many more programs like that exist. But my brother and I were talking about this ability to, when you build businesses and you can, what you just said about putting your family in those houses, like that's a big why for a lot of us, is to be able to do those things and help our family. And so it's a lot more than just cashing out at the end of the month.
Absolutely. At Keller Williams, they always teach us to know your big why. And for so many years, I'd go to these classes and I just don't know the big why. But I think I figured it out. It was my family. There's 8 kids. You said 1 million. There's only 8. But whenever you divide anything by 8, that's a lot. And I never wanted my kids to feel like they couldn't have something because mom and dad had so many kids. It was always just a big, big driver for me to be able to provide for them and them not feel like, oh, I can't go to Disney because we have 7 siblings, or I can't go to college or whatever. So that's been a huge motivator. And I never really put my finger on it until I was able to help my 2 adult kids get into a house in an expensive market and owner finance a good deal for them and just help them get on the path to home ownership at a very young age. I was like, felt amazing. Like, wow, I think that was my big why, and I never really put my finger on it.
Yeah, I got the chills.
Well, I got the chills whenever you're talking about your mom. So we each give the chills.
I know we're kindred spirits that way. It's amazing. I've always said too to my brothers, which I've also helped them both in different ways. But I've always said to them, I wish I had the resources to buy up anything that comes for sale in this town, because I want to be able to put more family and offer more opportunity, and maybe not even family. Maybe it's a single mom. Maybe it's like other kinds of things. And so my younger brother and I just said, you know what, it's time now. It's time for us to start an LLC together, or however you do it. I have LLCs, but I don't know necessarily real estate, and start looking at that next property and what is it, what is it going to take us financially and resources. I was so stuck on the Dave Ramsey no debt method. And after my divorce, I spent a few years and got completely debt free. And I was in this place where I was just like, total freedom and debt. And then now I'm in a completely different place of, wait a minute, you can leverage these resources to make more. And it's kind of I want to say juxtaposition, but I don't know if that's the right word, but it feels like they're complete opposites, but yet one can be business and one can be personal. You can be out of the debt personally and then have business. Like you said, your real estate is funding all of your real estate. So anyway, it's like a complete paradigm shift I'm having right now with leverage and resources, and going, maybe I can turn that into more money and be okay with the fact that that means taking on debt, right? Because
Yeah. Well, what Dave doesn't teach is good debt and bad debt. And Dave Ramsey is good to teach to the masses who don't know how to manage their money. But good debt is where whatever you buy is an asset and it's going to pay down that debt. So real estate falls into that category, and you're a real estate agent, you know your market in Las Vegas, Summerlin, all those areas. So why not take advantage of those loan programs and the opportunities that are put in front of you, especially if you're going to be wise with your money. So that's the key. You have to be wise with your money. You can't be taking bad debt and, home equity lines of credit and using that to, buy a boat or something, unless that boat's going to be an Uber boat or something. Everything that you borrow against really should be somehow an asset. Somehow it's going to pay for itself.
I love that. Everything you borrow against should be an asset, something that's going to pay for itself. That's my takeaway already right here. I think that's a great rule of thumb and good advice for people that fear taking on debt. As long as it's an asset and something will pay for itself. So who manages all of your properties?
I have a property manager that manages pretty much everything. I have some short-term rentals, Airbnb type stuff that we are managing. I'm probably looking at hiring someone on my real estate team that would kind of encompass that. I found it's very expensive to outsource Airbnb short-term rentals. They want like 30-35%. So unfortunately, we're still doing that, but it's incredibly profitable to do that. So for the most part, I have a property manager do everything.
How many of your properties are Airbnbs?
4.
Oh, only 4. Okay. Is that something new that you started working on, or how come it's only 4 out of 70?
Because I self-manage them.
Okay.
And 4 is a lot. If you have 2 and 3 day turnovers in the summer. So we typically do those in Coeur d'Alene area. Our summers are peak season. So we'll go from like June, July, August, September. So like 4 months I'll do those. And then in the off season, we switch over to travel nurses because my units are already in tip-top condition. They're already fully furnished. So I'll get the peak season of the Airbnb income, and then I'll block off the off season and put short-term or travel nurses in there for like 90 to 120 days. And I just set those up so that when the peak season rolls around, their leases are up and we switch back over to the vacation rental business.
That is a brilliant strategy. I had never heard of travel nurses. And then in the last year, I must have heard 8 different people talk about travel nurses. I had a family member apply to be a marketing person with the travel nurses. So that is an amazing strategy. So you're not sitting empty. Those Airbnbs aren't sitting there empty because you're strategically working to get them filled. Are they as profitable, less profitable, more profitable than
they're in the middle? So they're less profitable than Airbnb. They're more profitable than your typical rental, and I get to leave my furniture in there. The other thing it does for us, being that we self-manage, come September, we are ready for a break. It's like, oh my God, I can't wait for the travel nurses because we're tired of managing the cleaners. We don't clean ourselves, but we're managing it. We keep 5-star reviews. There's a lot of pressure to respond to these people. Fortunately, I'm somewhat social, not so much in real life, but I'm fine on a computer. So I'm good with like communicating with them. Oh, here's the great restaurants and all that stuff. But after a few months, we are ready for a break. If I could hire someone, maybe my next EA, if we could roll it into a new business, I think there's just a ton of potential there. We have investors who come to us and ask us, will you manage mine? I just don't want to do it. I have my own that I should be doing even more of, and I don't do that.
You've looked at starting your own property management company?
No, I don't want to start my own property management company, but maybe a short-term rental company.
Okay, short-term rental company. Another way to make money on what you're already doing, potentially.
Yeah, and I could outsource what we don't like for 4 months of the summer, which we'd rather be enjoying the lake ourselves instead of worrying about did the units get cleaned. So we've done that to be able to buy a few properties that were maybe in a higher price point that we needed to cash flow. And for them to cash flow, maybe we needed to Airbnb them. So we've taken that as a sacrifice, but we're kind of ready to be done with that sacrifice.
Okay, the big question. I had always thought of real estate as being a solid investment, something that was, I don't know what it is, 7% year over year increase as an average on real estate. Is that what you're?
Well, I mean, usually it's 4 to 6% in a traditional market. We have had insane swings of upwards of 20% some years, like back to back. So things got really nutty here really quick.
Yeah, they're really strong right now. I mean, I bought my house 8 months ago and there's $150,000 in equity in it already. I'm like, wow, of course, that's only if I were to turn around and sell it right now, which I don't intend to do. But what happened? So take back to when you and what year did you get into real estate? What year did you get your license?
In 98, 99.
98, 99. Wow. Okay. You were in a long time before I was. Okay. I got in 2007, right when the market was crashing. When you and I met probably in 2010, it was bottomed out. We were short sales and foreclosures. Vegas was completely just in the dumpsters. What happens when you own that many properties, and does it affect you at all in a market crash? And what about during the pandemic? Did anything change for you?
Pandemic, I can answer quickly. It was no problem. Our city didn't really shut down and everyone paid their rents. I don't think I had anyone that didn't pay rents.
Wow.
There were lots and lots of options out there from the government for people. I mean, in our area, they kind of had to work to not just go through some steps and get some free money and pay rent if they needed to. In a recession, I had rentals during the last recession. And what we found was our rents, once we got them to whatever that rate was, we may have left them there for 3 years, but we never had to take them down. So our rent stayed constant. People always need a place to live. And so my net worth may go down in a recession. My equity position may go down in a recession. But we work really hard to buy our assets and get them into a good mortgage as soon as we get them fixed up. So I get them into a good long-term mortgage so that we can really ride out a recession if we need to.
So when the interest rates completely bottomed out, you probably did a whole bunch of refinancing and getting them in the best possible mortgages while you had the opportunity, I would assume.
Yeah, one would assume. I wish I would have done that. But I was busy buying more properties. I was busy managing a real estate team and running Airbnbs, and we have a lending business and all this other stuff that we do. And the mortgages I had were good enough. And so the rates started creeping up, and my agents in the office were all refinancing. I thought, oh my God, I should do that. And so I did, but the rates had raised 1.5 points or something. And so they're up even more now, but I had a couple that I needed to refi, and I waited. I should have done it earlier, but I still got it done.
Is there a point that the interest rates would reach that you would stop buying? Do you have like a?
That's a good question, but no, not really. Already what we're doing is we're just negotiating harder on our purchase. And I'm going to the sellers and saying, well, the interest rates are such and such, I can't pay this price anymore. So because of that, I need to be at this price. And if it doesn't work, we just move on and just make it very transparent and upfront. This is what works for us.
How are you negotiating in it? Are you guys in a bubble that just doesn't look like what the rest of us are dealing with? How are you negotiating in a seller's market like this?
Well, it's changing. And so it's changing quick. Like in the last 3 weeks, it's changing. Our inventory is going straight up, and we track all of that. A guy on my team, Daniel, he tracks all of that, and he gives us reports and updates, and it makes it very easy to go to a seller and say, yeah, it looks like it's a good market, but here's what's happening. When the market's being flooded with inventory, our pendings are staying constant and the rates are expected to keep rising. And so it's just a lot of letting the sellers know what the market really is. And we try to find properties that are off market too. So I'm not really going on the MLS a lot to find my properties.
How do you find off market
properties? We send a lot of letters. We buy houses, letters that go directly to sellers. We have ads, and it's called the nickel's worth or thrifty nickel. It's the free paper that you pick up at the grocery store. We have ads that run in there year round, say we buy houses, quick close, cash, all that kind of stuff. Networking with other agents. So I let all the agents know if a deal falls apart and they need to close something quick, call me and we can buy stuff. I let people know that we buy things that others are afraid of. And being an agent, that helps me work with traditional clients as well. They'll say, well, if you're buying stuff, how am I going to buy stuff? And I say, well, trust me, you don't want the things we buy. A lot of the stuff that we buy, people would be afraid of. But we've got so much history in rehabbing these houses that we're not really afraid of much.
You probably have a really good checklist and a way to know what's fixable and what isn't, I would assume, having done this as long as you have. I'd be afraid to walk in and buy a lemon and not know what to do with it. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. We stay away from cracked foundations and things that I just don't have experience with. I've learned that I'm not a good builder and it takes a lot of time. So I don't buy bare land and try to build houses. But yeah, we know what we're afraid of.
Tell me about the subdivided. So you made a post and we're talking about this subdividing land. What is that? What does that look like? And why is it beneficial for you?
Well, since a lot of real estate agents are going to watch this, what I was doing with that post was letting my whole Facebook audience know that my wife and I just took a 10-acre parcel and we busted it up into 4 parcels. And I got my PhD in minor subdivisions. And if anyone else wants to know how to maximize potential on their land, to give me a call. And so that turned into lots of conversations. I haven't had any deals happen from that yet, but showing the social proof of what you do as an investor to your sphere, to your audience, is very powerful. They feel very confident when they talk to me about investing in real estate because we're doing so much of it ourselves. Quickly, that process came in from the ad in the Nicholsworth We Buy Houses. So it was an off-market lead. We bought it and it had 10 acres and I thought I could probably split this into 2. So went under contract on it. And then I called the county, which was probably backwards. I probably should have done that different. I called the county and the county said, no, you can actually get 4 lots there. Like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So then I started down the process and realized I didn't really know what I was doing. And so I reached out to a planner who used to work with the county, and he, for a fee, walked me through the whole thing. He knew the jargon to say to the road department and the county and all these different people. And that kept us on track and on budget. And it really made it easy for me running a real estate team and having all the investments where he was kind of just running it. And it took about a year to go through the process with the county, but the biggest tidbit there was to just hire someone. There's, whether it's a surveyor or a planner, there's people you can hire that will walk that process through. And then we just did the steps as they told us what to do. And about a year later, we had 4 different parcels that were ready to go to market. So we shipped those listings over to my real estate team, which marketed the properties and sold them. And as soon as they were split, we had 4 buyers ready to go.
That's amazing. Were you at family reunion this year?
No.
You don't go, do you go to those anymore? I haven't seen you in a while.
I've really enjoyed the digital experience. It's been great to stay home with my family and still get the content.
Yeah, I bet. I'm a lot freer these days as an empty nester. So anyway, at family reunion, Gary, for those of you who don't know, family reunion is a convention that Keller Williams Realty has. And the theme was buy dirt. Yeah, you saw it virtually, right? And Gary had the t-shirts afterward that said buy dirt. And I remember leaving there just a tad frustrated. I told my brother, who's an agent on my team also, and I said, I'm frustrated that we didn't have a buy dirt class following, like, don't tell us to buy dirt and then not tell us how to buy dirt. So when you posted that, it immediately grabbed my attention. A friend, do you know Jamie Mixon, also from Keller Williams? She's in the Louisiana area. She just did the same thing, but they had originally bought a bunch of land to build houses to put their family on, like I wanted to do. And their family doesn't want to all live there, I guess. So I now just gave away Jamie's whole story. Sorry, Jamie. I don't know if that was okay. Anyway, so now they've started building it off or selling off the lands or something like that. But it was the second time I heard that. And I thought, there's really something to this. There's something to, if we real estate agents were to get pretty savvy, we would learn how to buy dirt, right? And subdivide it and sell them off into what you did.
Yeah, so I don't usually like to buy dirt because dirt is not an income producing asset. So for the whole year that we had that, not only did we have to fund the planner, the road subdivision, the surveyor, and the acquisition, I had to pay my lender that I borrowed the money for the asset. I had to pay her every month, which we were able to cash flow just from our other, the real estate business. But it's not a great idea to just go buy dirt and not have a plan for, we're going to chop this up, we're going to put a house on it, we're going to somehow get money coming in, unless you're just loaded with income and you can take on that. But just watch buying dirt, just hoping it's going to appreciate. I would say you need to have a plan or income coming in from that dirt.
I think it was more in line with the limited inventory market. And like you said, we're starting to see it shift now. I'm sure there are some areas that don't have the big builds and have run out of, that's all they've got left is dirt to build on. So that might be a strategy there. We're still building like crazy out here in Vegas, of course. But it's just an interesting concept. So on your properties, what would somebody like me who has never, I just bought my first investment property by accident. What would you say are some steps that I would definitely want to start looking at to get into that world? Or anybody watching?
Yeah, to get into buying rentals. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Gary always says, Gary Keller, the owner of Keller Williams, he always says, whenever you go on a listing appointment, you should ask, is this something I should buy? And I think a lot of people look at it and think, oh my gosh, I'm gonna sell this to somebody, or it's gonna sell right off the market right away, and they're gonna make a commission, 3%, 1.5%, whatever that commission is. And maybe they're telling themselves, well, I'm not ready to buy real estate. I don't know how to do it, or don't have the money. And so they shut it down and they just take the listing instead of asking the seller, well, I could give you this offer. So I would say to not ever say I can't do that, but instead to use the magic question of how can I? And if you can use that magic question of how can I do whatever, instead of just saying I can't, it opens it up to opportunity. It opens it up to, oh gosh, I could ask my mom. I saw this guy on a webinar in Coeur d'Alene. I could call him and see if he'd finance it. I could check with my lender and see, well, how could I help get my mom into this place? But if you and your brother would have said, I can't do that, your mom wouldn't have had the house. But instead of saying I can't, you said, well, gosh, how can I? Or maybe, something like that. And you ended up talking to a lender who told you how you could do it. So without getting into like specifics, just how can I? And I found that it may be a lot of education. It may be reading a book on how to buy money with other people's, how to buy properties with other people's money. Watching webinars like this, find a niche that you're interested in and then dive deep on that niche. It may be as simple as figuring out how to ask a private lender for money, how to open that conversation, which could like change your life if you figure out how to do that.
Do you have fantastic advice? Do you have a formula that you use to decide what makes a good investment? Like price wise, does it have to be below market, or is it all about you negotiating it down to below market?
Well, it always has to be able to pay for itself when I put a tenant in it. So after I do the repairs, it has to be able to pay for that mortgage. We like to buy things such that they are about 20% below market value after we do the repairs. So if we buy something for $80,000 and put $20,000 in it, we have $100,000 in it. Whenever I'm done with that, I want to be able to go to a bank and say, hey, I bought this property. I've got it fixed up. I've got a great tenant in it. And I would like to refinance it and get $100,000 out. So that means it probably needs to appraise for about 125. So I need about 25% margin after we've done the work. And part of my value is we have the contacts to do the work. We know how to do that. We know how to add value inexpensively, such that whenever that appraiser comes around, we can get the value where we need it, get all our money back. So I kind of start with the after repair value in mind, and then work backwards and say, okay, well, I'm going to need to put this much in it. I'm going to need to have a margin of this. And that's how I come up with my price.
Wow. So fascinating. Each one of these little nuggets you're giving, I'm like, I need more on that. I need more on that. I need more on that. You should start a course or coaching on this, because there are a lot of real estate agents like me that have had, we've done really well with our businesses, but we have not stepped out into that world really of figuring out. I mean, I do great with passive income through affiliate marketing, but what's next? The next step has to be real estate investing. It's just it just makes the most sense to get into that, you know? So
Yeah.
all of these things that you're saying, though, that's what reduces your risk factors, making sure that you're getting it for the right amount. I love what you said about then getting the loan and pulling some cash out on it. I want to just like dig into that.
Yeah, well, that's how we have 70 rentals is we rinse and repeat that process over and over and over. And I'm very cautious on the front end of the purchase, the acquisition, to make sure that on the back end, we can get the refinance.
So you're buying primarily fixer uppers.
We do, yeah.
Yeah, that's really good to know.
Because I need to add value. And I couldn't see coming to your beautiful house with your beautiful pool and you selling that to me for 25% below value. And as an agent, I would never ask you to do that. But there are times when you go in houses and they need to sell right away and it needs a lot of work and they're happy to sell it quickly. So those are the ones that I look for. I need a way to add value.
Yeah, I have a perfect example. When my grandmother passed away, she left her house to a family member, and they had started multiple projects that never got done. And by the time they were ready to move, because the husband was being relocated, the house was in complete disarray. And I said to them, or Jeff said to them, I can't remember, we were representing them in the sale. And we said, if you fix this up, you know, you have potential to make a lot more money. They're like, we just went out. We should have just bought that property from them and done what needed to be done, because it sold ridiculously cheap. I'm happy for the family that gets to go in and have a house now, and they were going to fix it up themselves. But that's exactly what you're talking about. I can see the wires hanging from the ceiling, just picturing that. I should have thought that way, but at the time I didn't. And now that you're saying, start thinking that way, just open your mind to how can I? Becomes a totally different conversation. Wow, such great advice. I promised you we would keep it short, because I respect your time. So any last minute thoughts or advice you want to give everybody out there?
Education is your biggest value. I've seen a lot of Facebook groups where they'll say, hey, if I had $100,000, what would you do? And so many of the gurus or investors like me will all say, make sure you set some aside for coaching, for learning, for reading books. I mean, coaching can be like a YouTube channel like this. So educating your mind is going to be the difference in taking that next step, I think.
Did you read Hold by
Oh,
Gary?
yeah.
Do you think it's still relevant? Do you know?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I named one of my LLCs Hold LLC.
Wow.
So that whenever I would go to closing, I would have to be signing Hold LLC and have to kick myself and say, I'm supposed to hold this asset. So we absolutely have a holding company called Hold LLC after that book.
Oh,
Very
I
relevant.
love it. That's so good. So our first step should be sit down and read Holds so that we get caught up on the principles, right? That we at least learn the basics and then start. And it is true with YouTube. I mean, oh my gosh, those of us that have YouTube channels, we give all of our specialties away. There's no secrets. We tell everybody exactly how we do it. It's theirs if they want to come get it or not. Most won't. You know, most people are not naturally resourceful. So they really need a guide or a coach or somebody to walk them through each step of the process. And I'm sure there's plenty of those types of people out there too for real estate investing.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. If you have referrals, JT Sinclair, what's the name of your team, or is it just your name?
The Broker Sinclair team. The Broker Sinclair
that's
team,
right.
Keller Williams, Idaho.
That's right. In Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Send them all your referrals. All right. Thank you. It was so nice to see you again and catch up, even though virtually. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right. Talk to you later.